and welcome everyone. In this video we will see have you ever made an entire movie theater laugh. This video is brought to you by Question Response. Thanks to Aaron Valley, Sean McCabe, Dennis Manning and Marty Hafner for sharing their views with us. Let's go for Aaron Valley's first answer.
It was the Amazing Spiderman 2 movie. This is the one with Andrew Garfield. At the end, Spider-Man is trying to save Gwen from falling. And right at the end when she dies, I yell out in the theater, Tobey McGuire would have caught her. The whole theater breaks out in laughter. It was on my first and last online date. She was the only one that didn't find it funny. I guess I embarrassed her. I think I even got a high five on the way out of the movie. It was epic.
What do you think? We will continue with Sean McCabe's answer.
My mother did. It was in 1997. I had just been born earlier that year, so my mother had her hands full looking after me, her first baby. To give her a bit of a break and some time out of the house, my father looked after me for the afternoon while my aunts took her to the movies. They went to see Titanic. I'm going to assume you all know what the film's about, but for those of you who haven't seen it, there's a scene in the second act with a mother and her children. They're third-class passengers, and during the rush for the lifeboats, the officers keep the third class locked below decks until first class has finished loading, despite the fact the ship is sinking around them. The mother reassures her two small children that they just have to be patient, but by the look on her face, you can tell she knows there isn't much hope for them. Later, as the band plays Nearer, My God, to Thee while the ship goes down, the mother is shown having taken her children back to their cabin. She tucks them into bed and tells a bedtime story to get them to fall asleep, so they'll sleep through the ship sinking. A sad scene by any standards, but my mother had just given birth to me a few months ago, so her emotions were all over the place. After watching this scene, she was so shook up and upset that when the screen went black and the credits began rolling, she cried out in the nearly silent theater. But what about the children? Everyone jumped in fright, then realizing what happened, burst out laughing. My aunts were laughing too as they tried to get my sobbing mother out of the theater. She was fine by the time they got home, where my father cracked up as well. Edit, this answer isn't an invitation to argument or debate. If you don't agree with this answer, just ignore it and move on. It's a simple retelling of something that happened, not an opinion piece, so you're not going to prove anything since there isn't anything to argue. I'm just going to delete negative or inflammatory comments from now on, so don't waste your time.
The following answer is from Dennis Manning.
When I was in the military, before the flick began at the base theater, they played the national anthem while a giant flag displayed on the screen. There was always some idiot who would yell, "Play ball," after it was done. Finally, a colonel saw it and thought it was disrespectful. Discussion through the proper channels was made, and each colonel of the various brigades put out a memo that anyone who yelled "play ball" and got caught would be given an Article 15 with appropriate punishments. One night, while sitting there waiting for the movie to begin, the anthem started. Just as it ended, the guy in front of me yelled, "Play ball." I yelled out, "Attention, colonel on deck." Only, there was no colonel there. In fact, there weren't even any officers there. The guy in front of me jumped a foot in the air and looked wildly around while quickly sitting down. I laughed and asked him loudly, "Do you need to change your underwear now?" The crowd lost it.
The following answer is from Marty Hafner.
Yes, it was on the first date with someone I met in college. I was a big shot in the film classes and teachers, professor's pet at the university. A pretty lady from class asked me to a new movie that had just come out. We met up at the theater. We arrived early. I picked the best seats with her approval. Both of us sat and chatted a bit in our seats to get to know each other. She had the aisle seat, maybe to make a quick escape if the date went south. A few minutes before the show started, I asked her if she wanted popcorn or anything. She declined. I made a run for the concession stand to get a large soda and a big tub of popcorn, bathed in melted butter for myself. I usually don't partake of such snacks, but I was very nervous, as this lady was funny, smart, and extremely good-looking. I felt a bit out of my league for she was much admired on campus. I took a deep breath to collect myself and went back into the theater. I stopped in horror as I realized that the lights had dimmed and the movie was about to begin. Why did the lights going dim bother me? Well, I have a condition that affects the rods and cones in my eyes. A little darkness to anyone else is pitch black to me, so there I was looking at pitch black theater full of patrons. Fortunately, I had counted the rows when we entered, just in case this happened. I had also recounted them as I left to get the popcorn. So squinting really hard, I found the back row near the door and counted right to where my date was sitting. The previews began and offered a bit of light to navigate into our row. My date looked up, smiled, and shifted a bit to let me past her. I smiled back and tried to squeeze by her holding the popcorn and soda in my hands. Each step had to be precise in order to get to my seat without stepping on her toes. As I squeezed by her, I leaned forward just a tiny bit in her direction. She was sitting right in front of me. I turned my head to look at my seat. As I continued moving, I bumped the seat behind me ever so slightly, and the entire contents of a large, butter-soaked, popcorn tub emptied on my date's head. It emptied completely and she was covered in buttered popcorn like a rain-soaked blanket. There was a collective gasp, peppered with "OMGs." From the entire theater. My date sat there, slack-jawed and covered in popcorn. I froze in front of her, and was sure I had totally blown the date. I didn't know what to say. I extended my soda and said, "Would you like some soda with your popcorn?" I know, stupid. But I was petrified. She looked at me in silence for what seemed an eternity, and then burst out laughing, and the whole theater started laughing. We later married and loved to tell the story of our first date.
The video is over. Thank you for staying until the end. I hope the video has you more. If so, you can subscribe and activate the bell to miss any video. Also remember to leave a like. Here is the end of the video. Leave a comment to tell us if these answers are more useful to you. See you soon.